what IGNOU is doing specific. May I request
We have with us Dr. Vishi Mathur, Professor of the Division of Agriculture Economics, Indian Agriculture Development Research Institute, New Delhi. Dr. Mathur, why these resources in agriculture are important?
Resources in agriculture are important, for various reasons. But before that, we have different types of resources. We have land resources, we have labor resources, we have financial resources, and so on. All resources, natural resources, they are important. Number one, it is the resources which a country possesses, which determines the production capabilities of the economy or the country, what the country can produce. Second, the resources available in the country, they determine the economy's strengths and weaknesses. Third, the extent to which emerging opportunities in a dynamic environment can be tapped depends upon how much and what kind of resources the economy possesses. Besides the availability, the absolute availability of resources, a second reason why resources are important, or second factor which determines the importance of resources in the economy, is the distribution of the resources in the economy. Distribution between areas, geographical areas, between regions, between different regions, between different geographical areas, and so on. So that distribution, so it is not only the absolute amount of resources which are available, but where they are available, how they are distributed in the economy. That is another factor which determines how the economy is going to perform.
So now there is one more concept, quality of the resources are also very important.
Yes, definitely. The quality of the resources determines the kind of output you are going to get from the resources. So the quality of resources, especially the quality of the natural resources which an economy possesses, that is an important factor which determines how well the economy is going to perform over time. So quality is a very important concept. So we have, as I said, we have different types of resources. Now if we look at the land resources, I'm talking in terms of India. That is why, agriculture, this once again highlights the importance of agriculture in our economy. You look at our geographical area, we are a very large country, 328 million hectares of land. Then out of this, around 142 or 142 million hectares of land is our net cultivated or net sown area. That is, net means sown once. So parts of the some areas farmers take more than one crop. So the gross cropped area is 193 million hectares.
So remaining areas is 54% area is not cultivable. Huh? It means
net sown area. Yes, that is
remaining.
It's not just not cultivable means it includes area which is under residential, forests, water bodies. Then we have some wastelands also, fallow land. All that is there. So that is why we are talking, and we say 46% is the net sown area. That's the area in which crops are grown. So that is. Then out of this cultivated area, only 42% is irrigated area. So that brings in highlights the role of rainfall in our economy. large tracts of area are rain-fed area. India is a diverse country where we have a large variable climates, we have variable resources, we have variable soil types. If we look at the agroclimatic zones in India, we have 15 agroclimatic zones in the country. The total country can be divided in 15 distinct agroclimatic zones or regions. For example, we have the Western Himalayan region in our country, that's one zone. Then we have the Eastern Himalayan region. Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Uttarakhand, they form part of the Western.
So each region have different type of the cropping pattern. So
yeah, because crops require different, temperatures, different soil types, different daylight hours, moisture, rainfall. These agroclimatic zones, 15 agroclimatic zones that we have, each of them has a different kind of topography, each has a different elevation, those geographical aspect, each has a different aspect, each has a different slope, each has different climate, minimum, maximum temperatures. So each region is suitable for certain crops and not suitable for certain other crops. We have 15 such agroclimatic zones, starting from the hill region, Western Himalayan zone, Eastern Himalayan zone, then we have the lower Gangetic plains, the middle Gangetic plain regions, we have the Trans-Gangetic plain region, we have the eastern plateaus and hill regions, the central plateau and the hill regions, the southern plateau and the hill regions. Then we have the east coast plains, that's one, and the hill regions which includes Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, Pondicherry, Tamil Nadu, that's the east coast plains and the hill regions. We have the west coast plains and the Ghat region, the western Ghats. So Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, Maharashtra, some parts of Tamil Nadu also in the Ghat region. Then we have the Gujarat plains and hill regions, the Gujarat, Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu, these are included in those areas. Then we have the western dry region. The western dry region is largely Rajasthan, and the island region, so we have the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep Island and so on. So these are the 15 different agroclimatic zones that we have, each of which favors a different kind of climate and different kind of suitability for the crops. So some crops can be grown in one agroclimatic zone, others cannot be grown. In addition to this, we have agroecological regions. We have 6 agroecological regions. These 6 agroecological regions are the arid region, for example, the semi-arid region, the subhumid region, the humid or humid region, coastal and island regions. So these are agroecological zones. The ecology is different in each of these 6 zones, which again means that they favor a different kind of cultivation pattern, different kind of crops can be grown in those regions. India is also a country where we see a large variation in the soil types.
Different sandy loams.
We have broadly, we could say around 24-25 different kinds of soil groups, as we just saw in that table. So 25 broad soil groups. For example, we have red loamy soil. We have the red sandy soil. We have the laterite soils. We have the red and yellow soils, the black shallow soils, deep black soils, and so on. Like this, we have 25 groups. Now, soil is a very important land. When we say land is a very important resource, basically in land, the crop grows in the soil environment. Each of these soil groups has a different kind of capability to absorb and retain moisture. Each has a different kind of capability to allow root growth for crops. Each has different absorption and absorption power. Each has different characteristics in terms of the way percolation takes place in water in the soil. Each has a different kind of retention capacity of the fertilizer elements. So, which again means that each of these soil types would favor a different kind of crop for growth. So you cannot cultivate, some soils may be, for example, very well suited to growing cotton, but they are not suitable for paddy. Some soils are good for growing vegetables, others are not. So like that we have these different soil groups. So this is what lends a lot of variability and diversity to the agriculture in India.
Yeah.
So that's why land resources are very important. You said why resources are important. I'm giving you here the example of land resources, why land resources are important in our country. Okay. Then we have genetic resources. In addition to land resources, we have genetic resources, or biodiversity as we call it. India is one country which is extremely rich in genetic diversity. Our we say that India is a gene-rich country. We have a lot of genetic resources in our country. The variability among living organisms and species is very high. We have a large number of species which are native to this country. We have a large number of plants which are native to this country. We have a large number of plants which have been introduced in this country. The variability among living organisms and species in our country is very high. Whether we are talking of animal species or plant species, the variability is very, very high. And this variability has been recognized by our local communities.
Yeah.
That is why we are now, although we are now facing a problem on account of certain human activity, that with the growth of population and with the growth of urbanization and growth of industry, we had to undertake some human activity which has had a negative impact on our biodiversity and genetic resources. But local communities have for long realized the importance of this, and they have tried in their own way to conserve plant and animal biodiversity in the country. Okay. But with the current human activity, which as I mentioned on account of different factors, there has been a certain amount of erosion, and we have started realizing the importance of conserving these biodiversity or the genetic resources of our country. Okay.
So basically, what is the use of this genetic resources? Why important? How they aid in the agriculture development?
See, genetic resources are important because each different genetic makeup has a different production potential, number one. And
different characteristics.
Different characteristics. Yeah.
Some have plant protection characteristics.
Yes. And
they have resistance to some particular
that is
disease.
I would say that is what has happened in the process of evolution. As varieties and as species have evolved, they have tried to adapt to the changing environment, changing production environment, the changing pest and disease environment, and they have tried to adapt. That is why we need to preserve these resources, because they give us valuable information about the characteristics which will preserve these foods, which will help to improve the productivity of our systems, combat pests and diseases, combat changes in the climate, and so on. So that is why this variability is very important. And then variability also, since it's adaptation, it also brings about change in where the crops can be cultivated. There can be minor variations in the areas in which you can. Different plant species, different animal species, they adapt themselves to different climates. So that is another reason why variability is very important. So that is one aspect of variability. Now, since the country has now recognized that our genetic resources are getting depleted and getting eroded. So we have started thinking in terms of conservation policies. This is an aspect which is covered in this unit of the second block, and basically we are trying to develop management systems for conservation and enhancement and improvement of the genetic resources that we possess. So different types of management systems are being put in place so that we can conserve, enhance and improve our genetic resources. In this respect, the Ministry of Environment and Forests of the Government of India, that is the nodal agency which is associated with, or which has been assigned the responsibility for programs related to in situ conservation of biological diversity. Okay. This Ministry of Environment and Forests tries to undertake programs for in situ conservation of biological diversity through a network of organizations and institutions. It has a network of heritage sites which have been marked, earmarked as heritage sites. It has a network of botanical gardens across the country. It has set up national parks. It has set up sanctuaries. It has identified certain mangroves which require preservation. It has set up biosphere reserves. Now all these are efforts on the part of the ministry to conserve biological diversity. This is one aspect of conservation of biological diversity. Then we have the National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources, which has been assigned the responsibility of germplasm exchange and introduction. These are two aspects: exchange and introduction. Exchange means that we have some genetic material which another country would like to utilize for research purposes or for improving their production capacities. That we can exchange with them. We can take their material, they can give us their material. Like that we exchange germplasm. This could be for research purposes or otherwise. Then introduction is that we try to introduce exotic germplasm material in our country. So that is what we mean by this. So the National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources is responsible for this exchange and introduction part. We also have other institutions. For example, we have the National Bureau for Fish Genetic Resources,
and for
animal genetic resources. So they all do the similar kind of work in relation to either fish meat products or animal products and so on. Then we would also see what is the basic purpose of this whole management issue. One aspect is to prevent the entry into our country of certain diseases or pests which are currently exotic to our country. They do not exist. So, which means that we need to set up a system by which we can quarantine produce which comes from outside the country. And that system has been there. The Ministry of Agriculture, in fact, has to be involved in the issue of import licenses. Without that import permit, you cannot import anything. But the government has set up or assigned a responsibility to 3 agencies for plant quarantine. The National Bureau of Plant Genetic Resources, that NBPGR, this is responsible for agri-horticultural and agri-silviculture plants. Then the Forest Research Institute is responsible for forestry plants. And the Botanical Survey of India is responsible for plants of botanical and economic importance. So 3 different agencies are associated with the quarantine program of the country, besides of course the licensing part which the Ministry of Agriculture is associated with. The third category of resources that are important are the labor resources. Labor in the large population that we have in our country, labor is an abundant resource.
We have more than 60% population depend
upon agriculture. If we look at the census data for India, the latest census data, which is the 2001 census, the country has a total of 402 million workers. Okay. 32% of these are cultivators and 26% are agricultural laborers. So 32 plus 26, it's roughly 58% are people who are directly the workers, who are directly involved in agriculture.
Their livelihood depends wholly
on agriculture. And then we have, besides this, we have workers in the household industry sector, we have workers in the industrial sector, the other sectors, the agro industries, people who are working in the agro industries, and I would say people who are working in distribution aspects and markets, the regulated markets and so on, the middlemen, all these people are indirectly dependent upon agriculture. So you can see the magnitude of the resources, your labor or human resources that we have. So 58% people directly involved in agriculture. These 58% people who are directly involved in agriculture, if we try to look at them in terms of the household, if you look at the farmer households in India, we have around 101 million farmer households. So you see the magnitude of the problem. So labor resources are very, very important. Now, one thing that is associated with this resource is that a very large bulk of this resource is not only poor, but the literacy levels may also be low, which lead to exploitation.
Yeah.
So in order to minimize their exploitation, in order to ensure their livelihoods, improve their incomes, we have introduced a large number of policies related to labor which tend to benefit these people. So we have from time to time thought in terms of bringing in acts and regulations which relate to the minimum wages which are paid to labor, which relate to the abolition of bonded labor and of child labor. From the point of view of livelihood security, we have from time to time initiated programs related to employment, rural employment programs. We have gone in for work for food programs. And the recent and the current program, NREGA, which is the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, so which assures employment. Now, these are the policies and programs of the Government of India, which the basic objective of which is to try and improve the incomes and livelihood of the labor category. So that is why we have these policies. The fourth major resource is the livestock and fishery resource of the country. Now these resources, as we had discussed a little while earlier also, their importance is in terms of their numbers, their significance in different activities. They are the sources of several products that are important constituents of the food basket of people, both in the domestic market as well as the export markets. They are a source of employment for farm people, especially women. Livestock rearing, a large number of women are involved in these activities. Dairying and fisheries are two major activities of the different farming systems of our country. Fisheries is important because it is a major source of income from the export markets. So this is where the importance of livestock and fishery resources lies. Okay.
Yeah, our third block is related to the institutional infrastructure. Why this institutional infrastructure is important in agriculture development? What are the institutional infrastructure in the our agriculture system?
Institutions are important because they are the major infrastructure which support our agriculture sector. They support the farmers, they support the farming, livestock sectors. They are the services, the institutional infrastructure, they are the services, they are the facilities which provide assistance to the producers of the primary sector in order to provide opportunities for them to take advantage of emerging opportunities, take advantage of emerging technologies, the new developments in the field, and to market and sell their produce so that they are able to get a good income. For example, the institutions that we are talking about, they include institutions which are related to the provision of credit, to provide the insurance services. They are related to the warehousing and distribution thing. So we have corporations, warehouse corporations, the state and the central warehouse corporation, which provide these the basic storage capabilities. Those storage capabilities are required for the public distribution system, for procurement when the produce is there. So then we have the credit institutions. The credit institutions provide loans. The institutions, when I say institutions, I am talking about the organized sector. So these are the institutions which do not exploit producers, unlike the money lenders. And they provide, when you talk of organized credit, it's easier for people to access to that credit, and they know they will not be cheated. So that's one thing. Insurance, this is a relatively new phenomena, but it's just certainly coming up. National insurance company is there. So insurance against crops, insurance against animals, all that is provided. Then the institutions also, and one of the institutional arrangements is the public distribution system. The public distribution system, both from the consumers as well as the producers' point of view, the public distribution system is important, and this system has evolved over a period of time and has tried to improve its performance over time. Then we have institutions like cooperatives, farmers organizations, non-government organizations, and so on. These are basically associations of people, farmers, producers, etc. So that is an institutional mechanism which provides better opportunities to the farmers, or which is able to take advantage of the opportunities which are emerging. And then we have the last one, which is the agricultural research, education, and the extension system in the country, which is responsible for providing the basic support in terms of improvements in the agricultural sector and taking the improvements in the sense of technology development.
Okay.
Technology development, the research and education system undertakes development of technology, and the extension system is responsible for taking the technology to the actual users. So these are the system. Now these are in our country both in the private as well as in the public sector, and there are partnerships between the public and private sector institutions in all these areas.
How does institutional support help Indian agriculture development?
If we look at how the system has evolved, we notice some major shifts taking place in the Indian agriculture today. One major shift is that the Indian agriculture has moved away from a subsistence to a commercial production system. We are no longer a subsistence economy where people were dependent upon what they produced, but we are now growing or producing for commercial purposes. That means we are producing for the market.
Farmers want to sell now.
Yeah. Second is that there is a shift from the local to the regional level, from the regional to the national, then to the global level. So this shift from the local to the global and a movement away from subsistence to commercial production. This means what? This means that we have to link farmers to the markets. It's very important that we link the farmers to the markets, and in order to link these farmers to the market, we need institutions. Okay. And that is why the institutions are important. Secondly, these institutions also help to mitigate the production and market risks. When you talk of insurance and marketing credit and storage facilities, transportation facilities, they help to mitigate the production and market risks for the producers, and they help to assist the producers in the marketing of their produce. That's again, linking farmers to the market kind of a thing. So institutions support is necessary for this particular purpose. So that is why when we discuss the development of Indian agriculture, we need to talk of the institutional support that has been put in place in order to. Okay. Now this, when what I just talked about was the institutional support to the producers of agricultural and livestock products. Institutional support is also important for the consumer's point of view. Okay. See, food security or making food available to the consumers at affordable prices. That's an important aspect and responsibility of the state. So the public distribution system, that's an institution which has been set up, the public distribution system, that is the institution which safeguards the consumer's interests. Okay. The third type of institution that we were talking about were the cooperative societies, the non-government organizations, and the self-help groups, the concept of self-help groups. Now these are important because they favor the bargaining strength of the farmer. They improve the bargaining strength. And in India we have a large number of small marginal producers, medium level producers. Their individual outputs are not very large, but combined, if you can sell, that's what we saw in the case of milk, the Amul case. Small producers, but when they come together, you can bring about a revolution. So that improves the bargaining power of the producers.
There was a news today that each village should have the self-help groups of
Yes.
the women.
Self-help groups, they help in several ways. For one major fact, because most of these self-help groups are oriented towards rural women, and their objective is to, provide some kind of an entrepreneurial skill to the women, make them efficient in some aspects, so that they can generate some income for themselves and their families. Okay. Other than what they are getting from the farm, if they have a farm, but mostly they are people who are marginal farmers or landless groups and so on. So the self-help groups, they try to develop some entrepreneurial skills, and they inculcate the habit of savings in these people. That is a very major thing. Whatever small loans when are taken at the time at which the self-help group is formed, that loan has to be paid back. And the members, they develop this habit of saving. Every member saves money, and gradually, after a period of time, these self-help groups would become independent groups. They would not be dependent upon. They would have a source of livelihood, source of employment, and so on. These groups have been highly successful in the southern part of our country, Tamil Nadu and all. So now they say that why not elsewhere? So people are talking in terms of having self-help groups in every village of the country.
Which are the institutions which endure support to the agriculture? Important organizations.
There are a large number of organizations. Of course, we talked of the public distribution system. That is one. That's from the consumer's point of view, but also from the producer's point of view, because the the inputs, the food, the supply for the public distribution system comes from the farmers. The procurement that government does from the farmers at the time of harvest, that is the source of supply for the material for the public distribution system. So farmers also benefit in terms of the minimum support price and so on. But then there are other institutions. For example, if we talk of cooperatives, we have a large number of cooperatives. The apex body, the National Agriculture Cooperative Marketing Federation, NAFED, is there. Then we have members, NAFED members like the National Cooperative Development Council and the corporation, and from the consumer's point of view, we have the NCCF, the National Consumers Cooperative Federation. There is a cooperative federation for tribals, the Tribal Marketing TriFed. Then we have cooperatives, institutions that support specific crops. For example, tobacco. We have a cooperative federation for tobacco. So we have a large number of institutions. These are the cooperatives, the societies. We have a large number in village level marketing societies and so on. But there are also certain other things which are gradually becoming important. We have farmers associations, group action by farmers. That's a very important aspect. The farmers, they voluntarily, or through the suggestions made by some NGOs or some individuals, the farmers come together and try to manage systems. Watershed and the irrigation and water management is one area where farmers associations in different parts of the country have provided very useful inputs and have helped to develop the system. Then forest management is another area where associations of farmers have helped. Common property resources are managed by farmers associations. Okay. Then we have marketing associations. You have heard of the name of Maha Grapes, for example. That is one farmers cooperative in Maharashtra. It's a farmers association, and they're exporting their products and so on.
The block 4 is related with the management of agricultural produce. What areas we covered in these blocks basically?
Management of agricultural produce covers basically includes four units. Unit number one is capital formation, pricing, taxation, and subsidies in agriculture. All these are very important issues. The subsidies issues, pricing, minimum support price, etc. These are important issues. Then the procurement, storage, and distribution of food grains is another managerial issue or management issue which we have to deal with. You have to manage the produce. Research and development and the transfer of technology, that's another aspect. And then the linkages which the agricultural sector has with other sectors of the economy. Those linkages, that's also part of the management. So how do you take advantage of those linkages, intersectoral linkages? This is what this unit covers. See, basically what this section tries to deal with is the number of different instruments which are available or which are used for managing the agricultural produce. Okay. What are the issues which are important from the policy perspective? That is what this section would deal with. Because when you are formulating policy, you need to keep these issues in mind when you are formulating these policies. Not only formulating the policy, also when you are implementing the policy, when you are assessing and refining policy, you must take into account what are the various instruments which are being used or which are available for use for managing the produce. Okay. The subsidy, for example. Now you need to keep that in mind when you are formulating any policy that may have an impact on prices or on subsidy. Okay. The linkages that we were talking about, agriculture has linkages with other sector of the economy. That's another aspect which we need to keep in mind while formulating and implementing policy. See, agriculture, when we are talking of linkages, we need to keep in mind that agriculture, the sector, its development is a prerequisite for the overall development of the economy. Okay. So we need to develop, we were talking of the 4% rate of growth for an 8%. That's because agriculture is a prerequisite. That's what we meant, So we need to keep that in mind. Now, the major impact, the major issues which will impact these interlinkages between different sectors are prices, subsidies, the procurement and distribution systems, the transfer of technology.
The prices and subsidy continuously to be debated in all the forums.
Yes.
Why this is so?
See, prices is something that we are all affected by. As consumers, we are affected by prices. As producers, because their income depends upon the price they received, so they are affected by those prices. But not only are the domestic markets affected by prices, even our exports and imports are impacted by the prices. The subsidy that you charge for a product, that influences the prices of that product. Okay. So both the consumers, producers, everybody is affected by prices and subsidies both. Okay. So say suppose, for example, the government is contemplating a change in the subsidy that they are giving for fertilizer. Okay. And the government wants to change the subsidy that they want to give for fertilizer, it will impact the cost of production for fertilizer. If it fertilizer, which in turn would affect the price at which fertilizer is sold, and that in turn would affect the cost of production of the crops. When the cost of production increases, the prices in the consumer market increases. So you see the interlinkages that are there. If the prices of, if the government increases subsidy on some commodity, then the government exchequer has to shell out more money.
Yeah.
The taxpayers have to shell out more money. So we are affected in that extent. The subsidies, not only domestic, when we are talking of subsidies in other countries, they impact our economy. The whole Doha round is based on that, the subsidy issue in developed countries. Because that would impact the prices at which products are available in our country, and therefore our own producers may suffer. So both producers and consumers, they are impacted by prices and subsidy. That is why this question of prices and subsidies has been debated on and off. In fact, it is continuously being debated. Storage and distribution was another aspect that we were mentioning. They are important because both these storage and distribution impact involve costs. And when they involve costs, it means that they would impact the prices at which products are available to the consumer. Storage, it's like inventory costs. So the costs of carrying inventories and ordering inventories, those are involved. Distribution, likewise, the transportation cost is involved. Now, understanding of these two components for those who are studying policy is important, because based on an understanding of these costs, one can think in terms of optimizing the inventory and distribution costs, and one can think in terms of linking it with where production takes place in the country, how much is being produced in different areas. You can determine the sizes and locations of storage capacities in different parts of the country. So that is why storage and distribution are important aspects.
So how this, we have a lot of the research and development organization, how these organizations are important for management of the agriculture produce?
Yes, research and development, as I said, these are the functions that provide or generate technology.
Yeah.
Okay. Technology could be in terms of varieties that are produced, for example, in case of plants and animals, or it could be in terms of the package of practices that are developed. So this is again related to the kind of the way in which we are going to manage our whole agricultural production system. Technology, R&D generates technology, extension takes that technology to the producers. Now in our country, we have a very large national agricultural research system. If we look at the country's national agricultural research system, it comprises a large number of institutions. We have at the apex, we have the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, which is the main body which is responsible for this. Then under the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, we have 4 multidisciplinary national institutes, we have 44 research institutes, we have 30 national research centers, 5 national bureaus. Then we have such systems. So these are the organizations which are responsible for developing the technology.
Our block 5 is related to emerging trends in the agriculture. What are the emerging trends? Firstly, can you explain?
Yeah, emerging trends, basically we are talking in terms of diversification that is taking place towards high value products. We are talking in terms of the increasing agriculture industry interface, issues related to trade, quality of the produce, issues related to gender and sustainability. Then the growing impact of the ICTs, information and communication technologies. Those are the aspects which we have to cover in this area.
Thank you, Dr. Vishnu Mathur. You have come here and discuss about the whole issues related to Indian agriculture development. Today in this session we have discussed about the resources in the Indian agriculture. Then institutional supports we have developed for the agriculture we have also discussed. Then what are the institutions involved in the agriculture development we have discussed. Thank you very much.